Look, with the clickbait I did for the Batman a few weeks ago, it would have been a travesty not to do the inverse for Morbius. Based on the reviews it's been getting, asking if Morbius is the worst superhero movie ever doesn't seem that preposterous though. Even though it's up against some tough competition, it's worth examining. So today let's talk about the highly anticipated latest Sony Marvel film, Morbius.
The ability to use echolocation and an overpowering urge to consume blood.
I don't even know what to say for Morbius, because I knew what it was going to be. I've been talking about it on my podcast for months. It looks bad. It looks like a really bad movie, and I think it's going to be god-awful. That's my takeaway.
I am honestly kind of excited.
So I don't know why I went in with even the slightest inkling of hope that this would not be a generic, terribly edited, largely uninteresting, but occasionally unintentionally funny Sony Marvel film. And that's what it was. Look, it was a little more unintentionally funny than I was expecting, so there's that. Seeing this with a friend who you enjoy making fun of movies with is the only way I can recommend this. But that's about all the positive I have to say. Okay, that's a lie. There are one or two moments in the film that I thought were unironically pretty solid. The initial Morbius rampage. God, what a horrible combination of things I've just come up with there. That was pretty decent. Visually, before it was overused for the rest of the film, that slow-mo Morbius effect was kind of cool. And that was one of the few points in the film where the CGI actually looked decent. Like the close-up of Morbius's face looked pretty good, pretty convincing. The rest of the film, he and the generic, predictable bad guy both kind of look like they have Snapchat filters on the entire time. But we'll get to that. The rest of the film on the whole, I just feel like it perfectly embodies the worst parts of modern cinema. And I realize how pretentious that sounds, but everything wrong with superhero films, the idea of everything needing to be a franchise and to set up sequels and be part of a universe, while giving so little attention to making an actual film, it's just frustrating to sit through if you're not laughing at it for how dumb and lazy it is. I realize this is harsh, but this movie feels so damn much like a product. I think it stood out to me especially because I've been watching lots of films lately that have just felt special and like true passion was put behind the story and each individual shot, and they make you feel things like movies are supposed to. And then a film like this comes out where it feels like it was straight up plucked from an assembly line. There is so little creativity put into this film, so little effort put into the script. It is as predictable and as forgettable a film as you'll ever see. And unlike the Venom films, which are exactly all of this, but at least have the slight saving grace of a bit of Tom Hardy, Venom, banter weirdness, there's no semblance of charisma to add something engaging to this film. Jared Leto is fine as Dr. Michael Morbius, competently acting, but there's nothing interesting about his performance or the character. Matt Smith, I guess, is doing something a little out of the ordinary, but it's more just slightly confusing than anything that interesting. And besides his dance moves, his character is 100% the most generic villain you'll ever see. Tyrese Gibson plays the most nothing character I've seen in a superhero movie, maybe ever. He and his annoying sidekick are literally just there to give exposition and provide transitions between scenes. I could not tell you a single thing about this guy. It's kind of hilarious. And that's emblematic of the whole film. So much of it exists just to push the story forward, and then it's over. It's like watching the bare bones of a movie. What's the point? It's like reading a brainstorm whiteboard, or like the first initial notes that someone wrote on a napkin at a restaurant. It's like Morbius is a kid. He makes a friend. He wants to find a cure, becomes Vampire Man, superhero action. The end. But that's it. It's like reading that on screen. There's no extra flavor, nothing clever or exceptional. The dialogue even sounds like a first draft, with lines like, "I have to do this for my best friend, Milo," and other similar ones that sound nothing like what a human being would ever say, and only what a movie character would say. It just kind of annoyed me, because why are we watching this movie? Why are we paying for this movie that feels like no one wanted to make it? It feels like the person who wrote the script didn't want to write it, and it feels like the editor definitely didn't want to edit it. I get that maybe I'm being a bit too harsh. Like, you can sit through a lot of this movie, and it isn't atrociously terrible. It's just whatever, and it kind of washes over you while you eat popcorn. But I feel like that should be acknowledged that that's not really entertaining. At least not to me. Like, yes, it didn't consistently give me a headache, but it didn't mean anything. It feels like I was watching a homework assignment that someone didn't want to do and finished at the last minute while they were watching TV in the background. For a $75 million film, the movie also feels weirdly cheap. It takes place in like 4 main locations, and every other location, especially outdoor scenes, feels like a green screen and like an empty box that the characters stood in. Same with the story. You never get the feeling that these are actual characters you should care about. It's the laziest setup for Morbius and Matt Smith. Like a checklist of, look, we showed them having a friendship for 2 seconds as kids. Now you should care about their relationship. Not trying to sound like an asshole. I know making movies is not easy, but you do have to do more than just the literal bare minimum if you want any investment in these characters or their story. You can't just show a thing and give it no time to develop and no depth and nothing at all interesting and just be like, look, we showed it, so now you care. It's like, no, we don't. Okay, let me collect myself. Quick reminder here that if you're enjoying this video, drop a like, subscribe, hit the bell button, and comment your thoughts on Morbius down below. Also, after the video, check out my podcast, The Poorly Planned Podcast. Alright, back to the video. Lots of little moments in the film don't make any sense, which is kind of funny to joke about with your friends after. I'm sure Freddie and I will have fun with this on the pod. The action sequences aren't great. They devolve into very samey feeling sequences of that misty effect, and of course it ends with two versions of the same character punching each other, because that's what Sony Marvel is, I guess. The worst tropes of superhero films. And the visual effects, I feel like they got consistently worse throughout the film. Is that just me? Like I said, the first Morbius scene is pretty decent, and throughout a couple of those slow-mo shots look okay, but generally by the end, most of it didn't look great, putting it politely. I will say, some of the more horror-ish elements of the film, as brief as they were kind of interesting, and that's something that maybe could have been explored more and could have made the film more unique or interesting. The gore and violence for a PG-13 film, like there was actually a bit of blood, which I guess you kind of have to do for a film about a character who feeds on blood, but still, it wasn't Black Panther throat cut with no blood that looks like someone forgot to add in the special effects. I'll give him that. That added something, at least a little more interesting than it could have been. That's probably one thing this film did better than Venom. And then, speaking of Venom, the universe building. Okay, first of all, the shoehorned in Venom references. Someone says, this is just like the thing that happened in San Diego. Again, feels like they had a list. We gotta have one Venom reference in this scene. Just throw it in, whatever. Who cares if it sounds really unnatural? And then the I am Venom bit, it worked way better in the trailer for a number of reasons, mainly because afterwards, in the trailer, he goes, I'm joking, I'm Michael Morbius. In the film, besides being just a reference, it really makes no sense. It's like, why would you say that to that guy at this moment? That moment weirdly annoyed me more than anything else in the film, because it just felt like the laziest form of a reference possible. No one in the cinema laughed or cheered or anything. It was just like, he just did the thing with no real context. I don't know. Was not a fan. And then, okay, spoilers for the Morbius post-credit scenes, even though the director, I believe, talked about this before the movie even came out. Great stuff there, by the way, Sony. Go ahead and just spoil the whole movie before it comes out. Why not? These Sony Marvel movies, they just spoil them before they come out. I don't get it. Maybe it's because most of them are bad. Anyway, possibly the two worst post-credit scenes I've ever seen. And yes, I'm including the ant drumming and Thor and Jane kissing. A, they were confusing and didn't make sense. Why would MCU Adrian Toomes be transported to the Sonyverse? B, they were horribly edited and felt like such a last-minute addition. It felt like they had some vague footage of Michael Keaton saying some things, which I guess they did because they had all that stuff in the trailer that was cut out. And then they tried to force it into this weird mess to create this post-credits thing. It kind of feels like they somehow didn't know what No Way Home was going to be about, and they just thought like, okay, after that comes out, we'll flip this footage around some way to make it make some kind of sense. But of course they would know what was going to happen in No Way Home. It's the same studio. I don't know. And even with that, it feels like they thought, we have this second post-credit scene, for which we clearly couldn't get Michael Keaton in, by the way, and we want him and Morbius to talk about teaming up. Okay, we need to have a scene previous to that then that shows him coming to the Sony world, and so that first scene just feels like the weirdest, most out-of-place, strangely paced post-credit scene ever, just to establish he's there for the second one, like comes like 2 minutes later. Could have just been one scene if you switch some things around, honestly. They wanted to maybe have the Vulture suit in the second one, which is why they probably got like a voiceover from Michael Keaton and he wasn't actually there. Again, you see what I'm talking about when I say this felt so last minute and like thrown together and like they didn't know what No Way Home was going to be, so they just kind of like tried to scramble something. That first scene is so weird. Like I get it established as he shows up, but it just feels so anticlimactic. It's just like, he's here and now he's in a car. Just so in the next scene, it makes a little more sense why the Vulture's there. The only good thing about this post-credit scene is that it slightly lends to my hope that Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man could be transported to the Sony world and fight/team up with Venom, because clearly the rules don't matter, and you can just go, the multiverse made a mistake, now he's in this world. Though I have to say, after this and Venom 2, and after how much I liked Andrew in No Way Home, I don't know if I want him in this Sony Marvel world anymore. I was thinking maybe he would elevate it and they would complement each other, but having seen this, maybe he'd just be dragged down with this sinking ship. So in conclusion, I started writing this wanting to be kind of joking and having fun, and I realized this review got kind of mean and ranty at points, but despite the ironic fun I had with some of this movie, it did just kind of annoy me that it was exactly what I expected. And I know someone in the comments can be like, then why'd you see it if you thought it was going to be bad? Because maybe it wasn't going to be bad. Also, I have this YouTube channel where I talk about movies, so it's kind of my job. But I was hoping that, maybe I was wrong, maybe it would surprise me, I don't know. So ultimately, no, I would not say this is the worst superhero movie ever. That still belongs to I don't know, any of these ones, but it's one of the worst I've seen in a while, and it's emblematic of the worst parts of superhero movie culture these days. This is a movie that didn't need to exist, and it feels like everyone making it was not only aware of that, but leaned into it. It feels like a movie no one wanted to make. Some of it's a little unintentionally funny, some of it's really bad, most of it is just really lazy and nothing. I'll give Morbius a 2.9 out of 10, and here's how my rating system works for those who don't know. And here's where I'd rank it with the Sony Marvel movies, because I guess that's a whole franchise now. Can't wait for Madam Web, and Venom 3, and Kraven the Hunter. Oh my god. I just realized how many more they're making. Morbius 2. Morbius. You know what I'm saying? They should hire me, Sony. So, those are my thoughts on Morbius. What did you think of it? Let me know all of your thoughts down below in the comments. While you're at it, be sure to like this video, check out my Instagram and Twitter at BHL_Hudson, my TikTok at BHLHudson, my Letterboxd at RealBHLHudson. Check out this podcast that I do with a friend of mine where we talk about movies, TV shows, a bunch of nonsense. It's called The Poorly Planned Podcast. This week's episode should be pretty fun. We're talking Will Smith slap, we're talking Morbius. And subscribe for more videos like the one you just watched. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.